Atlantic Division Preview, brought to you by the Coast to Coast NHL podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the iHeart Sports Coast to Coast podcast with Mr. Maverick, my man Tori. We're here, we're going to be going over the four divisions of the NHL, and in this video, we're going to be focusing on the Atlantic Division, going team by team, kind of looking at the overall landscape of the division and also comparing them over to the Metro, of course, because they obviously have an impact on each other in the playoffs.
Obviously, starting at the bottom of the division, Buffalo. We both agree Buffalo is going to be there. What do you got to say about Buffalo?
It's been a crazy off season for Buffalo. Let's be honest. Everything going on with Eichel, it's been pretty rough. They've not really been in the news for good things. There's going to be quite a shift in what's going on with Buffalo. Allmark's gone, new goalies in the back, defense pretty much rebuilt other than Dahlin, who's that core piece. Their number one draft pick, Power, isn't even going to be playing for them this year. Maybe later in the year when the season
maybe
ends, but not a whole lot of promising things going on in Buffalo right now.
Yeah, it's kind of... It actually reminds me a lot of, other than the Eichel injury, what was happening to Edmonton until they ended up landing Leon, where he was kind of the next guy to help go with McDavid and everything. But with Buffalo, like you said, there's a lot of issues with them. I know, shout out to Jesse. It's tough. It's tough for seeing him in his spot. I mean, as a Leaf fan, I actually miss the rivalry with Buffalo. It's been so long. Either Leafs have been irrelevant or Sabres have been irrelevant. The last time they were both relevant at the same time has been forever. And it just feels like it's one of those rivalries that needs to kick again from my perspective. But they've got a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of trading to do, prospects to work on, recycling to figure out.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of promise here. Like every year there's a team that kind of surprises, comes out of the woodwork. They have the pieces, but I don't think Buffalo even has the potential to be that team, so it's unfortunate. It's probably going to be a basement dwelling team for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think Buffalo's biggest problem is that I think a lot of people expected Eichel to be dealt by now, and the fact he isn't, it kind of puts everything into a stalemate. And until they figure this task out, I don't think they can really accomplish a whole lot of other things. Like, yeah, sure, you can, work on your drafting, trade some picks around, but it's not substantial groundwork. That's the first thing that needs to be done. Get those new assets in and start turning over that new page. But until that happens, we're at a stalemate, and there's not too much I don't think we can say else about the Sabres.
All right, let's move on to this next team. I'm going to call it the Detroit Red Wings section. I got to be honest. Red Wings made some moves, brought in some veteran presence on the D, with Leddy coming in. They got Nedeljkovic, who is, I guess, going to be the future. That trade in the offseason really surprised me, but he's looks like he's got a number one role in Detroit, but still a lot of the same team. And one of their core players kind of dealing with the vaccine issue. Not going to be in the lineup a lot of the games with all that going on. That's a whole different subject for a different day, probably.
Who's that?
Bertuzzi. Tyler?
Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yes.
Yep. So Tyler Bertuzzi's dealing with that. So that's probably going to circle the team a little bit. I don't think the expectations are very high in Detroit yet, but I'm curious what your take is on this team. Up and coming, for sure.
They are, and I think that they might be that team that you referenced to about the surprise team. They're not going to be a playoff team. They're not there yet. But I think that a lot of people are just kind of discounting them as they're just in that bin with Buffalo. And in terms of competing, yeah, they probably are. But they're a lot closer to making those strides. I actually like a lot of the pieces.
Yeah.
When you mentioned Nedeljkovic, like me too, I'm surprised that they got him for that cheap. However, the one comment I've heard before is that within a calendar year of that trade, he had been on waivers twice and never went claimed. So if you were to ask that and say, hey, you got a second round pick for it, that's a win.
Yep.
Right? So, I mean, there's two sides to the story.
That's interesting. I didn't know that side of the story, but that's definitely something to consider.
until I heard that, I never really understood it, and then I was like, oh, I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
You would think you would have got more, but good move for Detroit. They
Yep.
got a guy, which there's actually a guy that, a kind of a Leaf side story, quick story, but there's a goalie, Keith Petruzzelli. He's a prospect for Detroit. He was one of their top up and coming young goaltenders. But there was a bit of mismanagement with the prospect. I don't remember exactly what happened or the details. But anyways, he walked away from Detroit and signed with Toronto. But that was a lot of because Nedeljkovic came in. Oh, I guess
Mm,
that was who came in. Nedeljkovic came in, and he's like, "Well, why would I sign my prospect deal when he's your goalie now? Like, I'm not going to get time to play.
yep.
I'm going to be stuck in the minors for a couple of years." So, like, they've lost a couple of guys on
Because
the
of that.
outskirts. However, they've brought in guys like Moritz Seider, who is one of the top young defensemen. I don't think he's quite there yet, but he will be on the radar of a lot of people mid-season, probably. Especially, I think that's why they brought Nick Leddy in to kind of lead him.
Yeah, that
Another
makes sense.
guy, another guy that people need to get familiar with the name is a guy named Lucas Raymond. He's been compared to Mitch
Yeah.
Marner. He's a playmaker, one of the elite playmakers, not in the NHL. So we'll see what he has to do. One of those things. They've got a lot of these ingredients kind of coming together. They moved off Mantha. Maybe this is the year they move off Larkin, and they
Yeah.
finally turn the page to like a real full new team. If I was doing that, Bertuzzi's gone as well. But it's one of those seasons for Detroit. Really, any win they get is a bonus. This season's
Yep.
not about winning; it's about growth. So they're going to be that team that works hard and surprises some people, I think.
Yeah, it's time. They've been collecting some of these top picks over the last number of years now. So it's time for them to really step up. Are they NHLers or are they just has-beens? We'll see.
Which leads me to the thing that I struggled with is looking at this next team that we agreed with was Ottawa. I actually
Yep.
struggled to determine whether I thought Ottawa or Detroit would finish higher in the standings.
Me too.
I'm a little bit worried about what's going on with Brady Kachuk. Just it seems like he just maybe really doesn't want to go back to Ottawa. Um, there's
Okay.
been some rumblings that there might be a trade in the works with St. Louis.
Oh, really? I haven't heard
Uh,
anything like that.
yeah, I've heard a couple sources that I don't necessarily trust saying that. However, I will say that if he was to be traded, St. Louis would be at the top of the list. If he were to be traded, St. Louis has the right return to send back in a potential deal or just offer sheet straight up. They have
Yeah,
the picks
it's
required.
getting to that
So,
point.
like,
Yeah.
it's possible, right? So we'll see what happens there. But without Brady Kachuk, I don't think that they're any better than Ottawa, or I mean Buffalo for that matter. Like I don't think they're
I
that
think
that
they
good of a
did
team.
address like some of their issue last season. Clearly, was defense. I think as that was most of the time they lost was when their defense really they did bring in some depth. Not nothing too crazy with Delzato and Weidman. Like it's nothing. It's like second and third liners, but that's what they
Mm.
are. And these young guys are going to start to have somewhat of a bigger role as well. With Will Stutzla, will he make a? I'm a fan of him. So will he
Yeah.
make a leap? Will some of those other young guys like they keep getting the young draft picks? Another kind of situation like Detroit. It's time to step up
Well,
or beyond.
we've seen teams like Buffalo and Edmonton draft all these guys high
Yep.
that turn into nothing.
Yep.
Ottawa, this is kind of that year where it's gotta that cog's gotta move. They've got to make that step, or the question's gonna start being asked: Are the were these the right guys? Did we make the right picks? Are these the guys we can win with? And once those questions start to creep in, it can turn into a recycle or a retooling that turns into a not a rebuild, but a year or two of okay, that recipe wasn't quite right. We got to try
Yeah.
remove a couple things, then add something, go back at it. So Ottawa's in a strange position for me. If I had to pick a team right now moving forward, Ottawa or Detroit, to be honest, I take Detroit. Other than the fact Ottawa has Brady. Brady's my boy. He's such a unicorn in the NHL. If Detroit had him, they would have a bright, bright future.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Not
So
that they don't,
yeah.
but yeah.
All right. Let's move on to this next team.
Hmm.
Think we both have them in the same position. Oh, I guess we have them both kind of labeled the same as well. Montreal Canadiens, the Stanley Cup finalists. Montreal Canadiens. We both have them at this point missing the playoffs, but contending for playoff spots. But we're predicting missing. which is a pretty big step back from being finalists, although it was last season, COVID season. For me, I'm not sold on this team. I think it was a Cinderella story that made it there last year. It was like the perfect storm that fell together and aligned, and now we're back to the real divisions. They're gonna have to play these tough teams. They're gonna have to play the 82 game schedule. They're not gonna be able to fluke their way just through some easier Canadian teams to sneak into the playoffs. Because had it been this way last year, I don't even think they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean they got a lot of points off playing teams that they just took advantage of just because the other teams couldn't score. So it turned into 2-1 games that they almost won by default a lot of the times, or went to shootout and then they won by default almost. And like I don't like their recipe, to be straight up. I just don't. However, it's kind of proven it could work in playoffs. So you just got to get there.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they don't have Shea Weber. Price is going to be out for a little bit. Jake Allen taking the full load. We'll see. They did sign. I always want to say Ekholm, but it was big defenseman that went to Tampa at the deadline. Savard, thank you.
David Savard.
They signed Savard. They've got Romanov coming in. They've got Drouin coming back.
Yep.
Which, speaking of Drouin, he said that he was having anxiety issues and sleeping issues, which I could understand why that would be difficult for a professional athlete. So hopefully, assuming he's back now, he's fully right. That's going to be a nice piece for them.
Yep.
I just don't see the center depth. Kotkaniemi and Suzuki were kind of the big reason why they went far in the playoffs in terms of up front. And I didn't like that depth going in, and they worked for them. So I see a bigger hole. Plus, they lost Deneau, which Deneau was big for them.
And they lost to the Carolina. Carolina swoops in there and steals, what's his name?
Kotkaniemi.
Kotkaniemi, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So they did lose some guys. They're bringing Hoffman. I don't know if he's
Which
really...
is a winger.
He's a winger.
They replaced their second and third line center with 2 wingers.
Yeah, so they're not really having the center depth. Maybe they'll shift Drouin over.
Probably. That's what I think they're going to do.
Caulfield, he's a winger too, right? He's not long-term center, or is he like their vision there?
They have Paling at center as well, who is another good young prospect, but it's not the same as having Deneau and Kotkaniemi. But I feel like they're a team that would be best suited to things just not going right this year, trading some stuff off. I just feel bad for guys like Gallagher and stuff like that. But then again, they did get that nice long run.
They kind of do have pretty good pieces for trade deadline sell, so they could get a decent return and it'd be a quick kind of situation. It reminds me a lot of how the Canucks were a couple of years ago when Vanek was on that team, and they shift a couple guys, and they kind of set up for the young wave to come in, and it might be looking like it's making that shift. Montreal.
We'll see, but I don't think that they really have a whole lot going for them this year. But they are that one tier better than the Ottawa, Detroit, and Buffalo.
Agreed. Yep. All right, we start shaking it up a little bit now. I think for the bottom 4, we were all the same, and then for the 4th, we got some different of an opinions on the contenders.
Which I just want to jump in. I found something interesting looking at this, that we both think only 3 teams will make the playoffs from the Atlantic. I found that interesting.
Yeah. Wasn't that the case 2 years ago as well? Well, I guess not really, because
I don't remember.
No, 2 years ago is when we had that huge extended playoff, actually, with the 24 teams. So even it would have been like almost 3 years ago now. Wow. 3 years since we've had a real regular season. Hard to believe.
Right?
But we both are seeing that. And I have Boston missing, and you have Toronto missing. So let's talk about both these teams. Let's lead it off with Boston, I guess.
Okay, and it's funny because I know offline we've talked a couple times, and we're kind of going different ways on Boston. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of the believer of until they show me they can't, they can. And you're kind of the belief, when is it going to go? Like, we all know it's going to go, but when is the levy
we're watching the fall of Boston sports as we know it. In our lifetime, we have seen Boston dominate all the sports. Patriots finally fallen into line. Boston Red Sox have fallen. They're fumbling on their way to the playoffs right now. It's time for the Bruins to take a step back and miss the playoffs for the first time in it's got to be one of the longest streaks going right now. Feels like it at least. They're always there. I don't know. They did make some changes. They always are addressing the depth. They always bring in certain kind of players. We always talk about that here. And Rask going out might not even be an issue because they do address it in the offseason, bringing in Allmark. And this is his time to prove whether he really is a number one. He was finally getting that chance in Buffalo and he would look good. But again, it's Buffalo. He wasn't getting.
I am
that a real
hot.
chance?
I'm hot on Allmark this year.
Yeah.
I also love Rask. He's one of my thoughts too. I just think that they've got a top young goalie prospect that's two-way. If he doesn't work out, Rask is coming whenever he's healthy. So they've got that as the backup plan. And I do think Allmark's going to be good. However, like I always say, goalies on new teams the first year, it's never usually the cleanest year. There's lots of room for mistakes and bad goals and stuff like that. So you might see that still, but you'll also see some games and probably 5-6 shutouts.
Well, when he's always playing for Buffalo and he comes in for a new team, anything's really an improvement.
I think he's going to play it. I forget the name right now. Khudobin. It reminds me of Khudobin when he came into to Boston. And even Halak.
Yeah.
They both came into Boston with some question marks and some stability question marks and some consistency question marks. Then all of a sudden they go to Boston and they're, elite backups or fantastic platoon options. Or look at even Tim Thomas. They find these goalies all the time where they just keep adding. It might come down
to just like Boston knows how to create a great hockey culture and it works. Whereas we're seeing other teams in this division with crappy hockey culture. Buffalo always seems to have issues. Ottawa with their owner always seems to have issues with the culture, and even like other struggling teams in this culture. There's always question marks around the Leafs, but that's a whole nother story. But Boston seems to pull it off. I probably my bias sneaking in here because I just can't stand them. But I don't know. I think that the top four in this, they're strong. But I still think there's only 3 teams sneaking out because I don't know how well this division can compete outside of it. I'm a little concerned with that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, well, I will contradict myself on one last point on Boston is that how I always say I'll take the centerman over the winger. In this particular case, Boston let Krejci go, who wanted to go home anyways, like to his home country, and they brought in Taylor Hall. For arguably the same amount of money, like in terms of value, maybe not dollar, but in terms of value, what you're getting for what you're spending.
Yep.
Like they acquired a guy who was a former Hart candidate or winner or whatever, which I don't think that's the level of player he is, but they now have 3 weapons on their power play, not including Bergeron, who's just the straw that stirs the drink there. They've got solid goaltending, and they were also missing Grzelcyk, who was one of their top power play guys, along with was the other injury they had all year last year, whoever it was, I can't remember. I do think they have a hole at center that they'll have to address at some point. I don't think Coyle can fill that hole unless they go Coyle and Hulla and just go depth down the center. I'm really high on Boston. I'm surprised that you're cold on them. Maybe your bias is really kicking in.
It's possible. I just feel it in my bones, but that's not really the right mindset. So I'll just move on to the Toronto Maple Leafs. You have them missing. You're always a little down on them more than me, but I'm pretty hot on them compared to you. It's kind of like the opposite kind of thing. Like I'm hot on Leafs compared to you, and you're hot on Boston. So for me, I just think the all-star talent of the Leafs is going to get them through at least to the playoffs. They are built, in my opinion, for a good regular season team. I do, I guess, have a little bit of question marks with the goalies at this point, with Mrazek coming in, whether that's going to be able to hold the fort down given the history that this defense has shown. But looking at the 6 that the Leafs are putting out on defense, it feels like it's some of the strongest they've put out in a long time.
I don't even know where to start, man.
Yeah, I'm always interested on Mr. Leaf's take.
I guess I'll start from the goalies out just because that's where I tend to start. I agree with you. As an overall just season vibe, the Leafs are due for a circus here. They're due for injuries. They're due for distractions. They're due for bad performance. They're just due for things not to quite go right. we're in the market right now starving for something to go right, which is kind of what I found funny today when you asked me about Bunting, because he scored Michael Bunting, he scored the hat trick last night. Like, they're gonna need performances like that. They're gonna need these guys to have good nights. They're gonna need McCabe to score 2 goals. They're gonna need these guys to do these things.
I found it quite interesting that the Leafs were one of the top teams with turnover, especially in the bottom six.
And there was some stat that they kept saying over the summer that the most turnover in a roster to ever make it far in the playoffs was like half as many as the Leafs have been turning over on a
Yeah.
consistent basis. So like, I don't know if that necessarily means anything. I mean, look at Vegas. Vegas first year everyone's together. They
Yeah.
went to the Cup final. That kind of disproves the whole theory. On the back end, I'm not gonna lie, I loved Bogosian. He was the type of guy that was just a perfect fit for me. He's the type of guy that, like, when I watch him play, every time I'd be like, "Oh, crunch that guy, or just get it out, or just make the right play, or block that shot." He always just made the right play. Anyone pushed the net, he pushed them away, and everybody had that respect with him. Where it just like, you're Bogosian, like, not that you're the super biggest, meanest, toughest guy, but like, I also don't want to fuck with you.
Yeah.
So like, them losing that and going to Sandin and Liljegren and Dermott, basically the GM's doubling down. They got rid of a lot of these older, slower guys that filled a role, like the Joe Thorntons and these other guys, and they filled them. They doubled down with the small, more skilled, gritty guys that they like to add to the team. So we'll see. But I am not a fan of this whole own rental business. This whole Morgan Riley storyline is really bothersome to me. The fact that already Sandin's getting power play time ahead of Riley. Like, you don't think that pisses him off that 2 years, 3 years ago, whatever it was, he put up 60 assists, I think it was.
Yeah.
And now he's off the power play. Now he's not playing with some of these elite players in the world. Why? Because this kid that just walked on the team that isn't even a full timer yet is taking your spot on the power play in your contract year when you're trying to show how valuable you are. Screw you,
Yeah.
Leafs. You're limiting my value. You're trying to either limit me so you can get a deal, or you're not letting me be the best I can. Which, if that's the case,
Yeah.
I
You
want to
don't
go to
want
a
to
place
work.
that does.
Yeah. You want to work with someone that pushes you forward as well. Like,
Yeah.
you push them, they push you. It's kind of a teamwork thing. Yeah, I could see that posing a problem, and it does seem like over the past couple that the locker room is a little bit of, it hasn't been stable. Feels that way.
Mm.
So
And like, you have a guy like Ilya Mikheyev, which is not a primary player. I would argue he's not even a secondary player. That, in fact, he's a complementary player. He's asking for a trade. As far as I'm concerned, bye. Like, it 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 sucks because of everything that's happened with him when he got his wrist cut. It was a great storyline. He was a fan favorite. People starting to get a bit irritated that he cannot score, and then you ask for a trade. Like, you're not in a position to ask for that. You're in a position to put your head down and grind and figure out a way to contribute to this team and help this team accomplish the goal that they're looking to accomplish. And
yeah,
if this is the challenge that they haven't been able to accomplish for years, and this is the hill everyone's going to die on, and not every man is on that team, get off the team. And if there's anyone else like that, I want them off the team. I don't care who they are, off the team, because any of those guys are going to be the cancer when it comes down to the playoff time where it matters. This season for me is an 82 game preseason. Maybe not technically because of trade deadline and stuff, and then you really get into it kind of once the trade deadline passes and
yeah,
you see where the playoff races go. So like, yeah, I'll probably get into it then. Sure, I'll be watching, but for me, Matthews is the best player to ever wear a Leaf jersey, so I have to watch. Like, I can't be stubborn and be like, oh, I'm not going to watch because they've hurt me and whatever. Like, I'll be watching other good hockey too, but like, if years down the road I look back and be like, oh fuck, like, I didn't watch that year Matthews scored all those goals or
yeah. You'll
whatever,
be upset.
I'll be mad, right? But Matthews is going to be injured this year, which is going to be a distraction, which is going to put a more weighted barrier on Marner, who already has the city ready to chase him out of the city. Like, it's just there's a lot
It's
of things
never
not looking
easy
good.
in Leafs Nation. It's never easy.
Yeah,
Um,
like, he was Dougie, right? He was Dougie a year ago. Now
yeah.
they want to burn him at the stake.
Now
So
they want his head. Yeah.
yeah,
If your prediction comes true and they do miss, is Dubas gone?
Well, Keefe got a 2-year extension today, so no. I think everyone's just fucking oblivious on what the hell is going
All
on here,
right. All right.
and that's why I'm
I'm a
down on
little
them.
optimistic. I do agree with you, and it's probably that way in Toronto. It's like the season, like playoffs is expected at this rate. First
One
round
last
exit
proclamation.
also expected, but yeah,
Sorry, one last proclamation on the Leafs. Peter Mrazek will be the better Leaf goalie this year.
that does not surprise me. He's brought in to be the starter, right?
I think he's gonna
Yeah,
outperform his contract. Yeah.
it's good. All right, let's move on to who we both have as third and making the playoffs. So it's pretty. We're both at least on the same page as that. The Florida
Mm-hmm.
Panthers. I gotta admit, they're a lot of the same team coming back from last year. Obviously, they're back up with Drieger. He's gone. Went to Seattle. Everyone kind of saw that coming. So they're really going to be relying again, I think, on Bobo to take the reins in the crease. Of course, Spencer Knight is going to be backing him up, but I wouldn't expect him to take majority of the load at all. They bring in a pretty top winger who never really performed well when he was with Buffalo, Sam Reinhart. Will he slot in on the top line? Who knows? But it seems like adding winger depth to Florida already, who has quite a deep forward base to begin with. It's going to be pretty interesting to watch this team.
You can say what you want about Reinhardt and Bennett, but they're both hungry players. They're both players coming from teams who didn't necessarily want them or didn't necessarily put them in spots that they felt they deserved to be in.
Yeah.
And now they're in Florida where they're like paying them to be like, hey, go play for us now. Be the player that you say and feel like you're going to be. And the one thing I think we have to remember, like, before I'll come back to that one sec, with goalies, they have 3 good goalies. They've got Knight, Montembeault, and Bobrovsky. So I don't
Yeah.
think that the goaltending will be an issue for them. However, Drieger was a bit of a loss for them. But on defense, we got to remember Ekblad had that injury, right?
Yeah.
I think him coming back is going to really bring this team together. And I think that if there's any team that's going to take Tampa down off the reins of this division, it's going to be Florida. Yes, I have them in third in the division, but that's because I don't think everything is going to go right.
They are losing one of their big staples in the backfield, Yandel, who'd been there. He's been a big part of their core defense for a number of years. But it looks like Uyghur from last season really stepped up when Ekblad did go down with the injury, and he's going to be really filling those shoes, whether he can perform again at that back end. It's going to be interesting, but I'm really most interested in watching how Bobo plays this year.
Yeah, I think that they're gonna do a true split, specifically this year. Like I think Florida has a duty or a responsibility this year to reestablish Bobrovsky and figure out how to get him back
Yep.
to a platoon level. Not we don't like they don't need an all-star goalie anymore. They've got Knight coming, but they need a guy that can go in there for, let's say, 30 to 45, maybe 55 games if there's some injuries or something,
Yep.
and play some games and just give up 3 or 4 and just give them a chance
Compete.
to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Earn your contract. I will say, I do think that within a year from now, Bobrovsky will be gone from Florida.
Yeah, I could see it. I'm excited to see their goalies for sure. From what I looked at, Mautimbo or whoever you were just saying as their third goalie.
Emil Montembeault.
Yeah, they have, from my depth charts I was looking at, they have Christopher Gibson as the third goalie in Florida right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Montembeault leave?
I don't know.
I'm gonna pull it up quickly.
He's bringing a new ad. Gibson, I remember him starting one game last year. I forget for who. Was it for the Leafs?
Who, sorry?
Christopher Gibson. I remember it wasn't on Florida last year.
Wasn't for the Leafs.
He
No,
started for somebody last
It
year.
was Tampa. It was Tampa because I added him at the end of the year. And he got
Yeah, that.
He used to belong to Toronto as a prospect, but he was
That's
traded from the Islanders before that, or to
Okay.
the Islanders, something
makes
like that.
sense.
He used to be in Toronto. But yeah, I guess Montembeault is no, Montembeault's in the minors.
Yeah.
I guess they plan on waiving him, but we'll see if he
Either
clears.
way, like they're both minor league goalies at this point, right?
Yeah,
So,
or at least depth options, anyways.
Yep. All right, let's move on. Stanley Cup champions Tampa Bay Lightning looking for the three-peat this year. Will they do it? I say no.
The odds say no.
That's how. Yeah, that's how I'm starting this off with the Lightning. But Kucherov's back in action, so it's gonna be good for them to see. They're gonna be under the cap, I assume, while he's in the lineup, so that's good.
Somehow, but we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have too much. They didn't really bring too much change to their team. I guess Corey Perry's coming in there.
They lost their entire third line.
Yeah, which
but
I think is fair for a
line.
team that is over the cap, winning Stanley Cups 2 years in a row. Probably should lose a decently good player.
But it's also a team that has been pushing its prospects back because it's been loaded. So now it's pulling up prospects that are ready to contribute or should be ready to contribute. They're almost over-ripened, right?
Yeah.
And they're also hungry, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Some names I got written down here for possible prospects to watch in the future. Jack Finley, a 19-year-old center. I haven't heard of him before, but he's supposedly their best top prospect. Roman Schmidt, 18-year-old defenseman. But someone that might contribute soon, Alex Barbelet. I haven't heard of that guy either. 24-year-old center. They're looking for him to maybe come up to the fourth line.
You don't have Foot on that list?
He's not. I think he's already cemented on there as like a starter. So these are supposed guys that are kind of like fringe players working their way up. So Foot is already.
They've got a couple of young guys who are like.
Cal Foot's already labeled as like their number 6. So.
But they've also got those 2 forwards who played a couple of games in the playoffs. That also are prospects, but they should be
like Joseph.
Contributors.
Yeah.
Yes, Joseph and one other guy I can't remember the name of.
Yeah.
But yeah. They've got some good depth still, even losing.
Yeah, I'm looking at their depth chart. It's pretty good. They bring in, of course, they always seem to bring in these like backups that have, like they're on their last set of legs. So Vasilevsky's got a veteran backup, as per usual. He's got Brian Elliott back there, enough to get it done for them on those days when he needs a break. Just like McKinley, or I call him McBackup. I forget who McKinney.
McElhaney.
Yeah, McElhaney.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
Curtis McElhaney,
yeah.
Went from Toronto to Tampa, yeah.
So like just that same style of backup they've had forever. It seems like they're setting up to be top of the division, and that's where we both have them.
It seems like they almost asked Vasilevsky, what kind of backup do you want? What makes you feel comfortable? And he probably said, or it looks like he said, I want a veteran that does his thing. He's there to support me. He's not about him, like that kind of thing, and he's the perfect fit. Elliott is literally the perfect fit for them. I think he's also good enough where it could take 5 or 8 games away from Vasilevsky and sit him just a little bit more.
Yeah, you might get a little bit more rest this year than other years. Yeah, I can see that. Definitely with an 82-game season this year.
Well, I also looked at the schedule, and I think Tampa has 7 or 8 back-to-backs, so I mean, that's at least 8 games right there, right?
Yeah.
So,
all right, cool.
In theory.
So that's basically it. We just gave a rundown of the Atlantic Division, all 8 teams there. We're going to do 3 more videos for the other divisions. Of course, the Atlantic intertwines with the Metro in terms of playoff seeding. 3 teams. We're both only picking 3 teams coming from this side, which respectively means we're both picking 5 from the Metro. So you're going to have to watch that out, see what we think on that side of the things. I guess any last words on what's going on in this Atlantic?
No, I'm excited to watch it just because it's going to be nice as a Leaf fan to see them playing different teams again.
Yes.
And I almost was thinking about it today in a weird sense that like it's almost even revitalized the games against the teams from their own division last year. Like when I looked at Ottawa and Montreal, I was like, I can't wait to play them.
Yeah. Because
it's almost like those nights are. Yes, it's the same teams, but now they're special again.
Yeah, because they saw each other so many times the year before. There's a little bit of blood there, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll wrap this one up, and we'll see you guys out there.
Sounds good.
For the next 4. Bye.